Hey, my name is Kevin McLemore, and my co-host is my lovely son, 24-year-old sensation. He is the person that keeps me anchored on Kevin Witt's son, um, Theo McLemore. And today we have a distinguished guest. He's been in the record industry for almost, I would say, 20 years. He has worked with some of the names like a young Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, Ludacris. Um, I am honored and privileged not only to have him as a friend, but to welcome Vice President of Contra World Recording, Mr. Aaron Eubanks. Welcome to Talking with Kevin and Son. How you doing, brother?
I am doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to this. We've had, several offline conversations, obviously. So, let's I'm ready to have an online discussion about several things. So yeah, pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and to our listeners, I hope you understand when we talk about the music, we're going to talk about hip hop. We're also going to talk about the position each level or each generation of artists have created and taken a position of echoing what was going on in our communities, our lives, our relationship, our political stance, and also our social responsibilities. So when I talk about the place in history and creating a revolution, I need to find out directly, where history began, because I know years and years ago, the music came out with, I think it was Run DMC, but I think Curtis Blow was the first person to get signed by a major record company. And I know, looking back at your history, Aaron, how did you get involved in the music industry?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So my involvement in the music industry actually starts as an artist. My aspirations for being a artist, a writer, as well as a producer, when I was I guess about 16, 17 years old. Around that time, I started to become more curious about pursuing an actual career as an artist. So I went out and I did what young kids do at that time, and I just tried my luck at several things, which was I tried to work with different kids around the neighborhood who were a little bit further along than I was as far as their skill as an artist. And eventually, though, that led me to just making friends with some very talented people at that time, and learning what it was to just make music as a young kid. I was a hip hop artist, and I did mainly. It was I guess you would describe it at the time. Music was somewhat conscious. So groups like Tribe Called Quest were one of my bigger influences, so I made music that really represented an aspirational side, but also a consciousness within society during that time. That was sort of like my intro to the whole, just to hip hop, to rap, and I loved it.
And I heard you got signed with a single song deal by the Edmond Recording Group. I think that's Babyface's company, and
Yeah.
everyone knows who Babyface is. Mr.
Yeah.
Sexy.
That came about, it was interesting because I was signed to, so that was a little bit further along, but that came about via a photo shoot. I did a photo shoot with a photographer who's still a very good associate and friend of mine today. Her name is Suzanne Bolkin. Shout out to Suzanne if she sees this, if she's listening. But off of a photo shoot, they saw me and my music was being shopped around the industry. I didn't have a manager. I didn't have like a lawyer. I had this woman who believed in me, which is something that we'll get into. And she had a relationship with someone else from the area that was into film and music, and they were scoring a movie that the Edmonds were working on, per se. And Babyface had his wife at the time was Tracy Edmonds, And she saw my photo and she heard some of my music and she's like, okay, who's that? You know, I'm interested to, you know, to see who that is. And that's how the whole thing started. Like, I couldn't believe it. You know, I was flown to Atlanta and, you know, had the opportunity to meet her. Met Babyface it was a brief meeting. You know, he probably wouldn't even remember me today, but it was her company. She was the one that was running it. I guess he was responsible for setting it up, but they offered me a production deal, which is basically, as an artist, it allows you to work with their in-house talent, writing, producing, and that was that's how that whole thing took place. Very cool experience.
Okay. What made you switch from creating your own music to managing others?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
The thing that drove me to that was that I did not have, again, what I just mentioned before. I didn't have like a manager. I didn't have a lawyer. It was really just a lot of me,
Yeah.
from the business side. And I was learning through my own mistakes. And after a while, I started to meet other artists who were going through the same thing as me. And I
Okay.
was helping, you know, I was like playing a role for them. Like, I'm an artist too, but I'm also attempting to help them out, you know, with, you know, questions, because it, you know, it costs to get, you know, lawyers and, you know, not everyone had a manager. Not everyone, a lot of us were just like talented. And it was like, okay, like, well, what do I do if this happens? Who do I contact? How do I navigate a label? What does this mean? What does that mean? Through my own experiences, I just started to, you know, I knew the answers. So I was able to just sort of lend that knowledge to other artists who might have been in a position where they were struggling, or other artists that were like looking to get on a label, to get off a label. And I appreciated it. And people just were coming to me. I said, you know, I guess that's something that I'll look more into, because the artist thing for me was not working as quickly as I wanted it to. You know, like, being an artist was I loved it, you know, and it's still, I mean, I still come from that. I'm still cut from that cloth where I think like an artist does. But I started to have more enjoyment in seeing the success of others. You know, I started to like, you know, once I got somebody their first record deal, it wasn't about me. It was like, wow, like, you know, I started to really appreciate that side and the business side. And I was like, you know, I'm pretty good at this too. So that's just where things started to lead.
All right. What's A&R? You say that you're listed as vice president of A&R, and
Yeah.
I know your name is Aaron Eubanks, so I know it's not
Yeah.
your initials.
Right. I wear many different hats. We can get into that, but A&R is still one of them. So A&R it stands for artist and repertoire. It's taken on many different meanings over the years, but ultimately, you know, an A&R is a person that a lot of artists are very familiar with, or they want to become very familiar with. So an A&R is the one who can be responsible for signing you, right? A&R is like, some people might look at us as talent scouts. Some of us might, you know, they might look at us as the guy who I got to get to, or the girl that I have to get to, because they're the ones that have a big role in you receiving a contract from a record company. So by nature, an A&R is the person that finds talent. That was all I was once, you know, an actual A&R. You know, we can get into that at some point too. But your responsibility is to go out, you work underneath a label. They want you to go and find us the next big star, right? That's ultimately what it comes down to. So artists and repertoire is what it stands for. But as an A&R these days, you can, you know, you're a lot of things. You know, you're a marketing person, you're you're still a talent scout, if you will. A&Rs have to have a you know, and it can be a tough position, you know, because it's like based off of, you know, what you've done lately, right? And it can be a revolving door, but you have to have a vision as an A&R. You got to be, and you can't be afraid to take risks, and you can't be lazy. There's a lot of lazy A&Rs today, and the reason why that music sounds the way it sounds is, you know, because of that. And again, we can get into that too. Not to say all A&Rs are bad, because there's some really good ones.
Right. I mean, with any industry, there's always those that have a stronger purpose, and there are always those that just has a purpose, but it's not that strong.
Right. Right.
You know, you've been lucky early on in your career, and we're going to get to the revolution of music, but you know, your resume is impressive. When you talk about, you know, Ludacris, you talk about a young Jay-Z, you're talking about Lil Wayne. We all see the success of after the fact, but we don't see the process of it. And I know for a lot of young kids that are, you know, just bought their mixing machine, got a great mic and set up a little studio in a small place of their house and whatever, we all think that tomorrow we're going to be that guy or that girl. You know, going through the process of connecting with some of these stars. If I was a young artist and I was to say, look, I'm going to start Googling Aaron Eubanks and see if he'll listen to my is it EP now? Is that what they have? You know,
EP mixtape. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you receive someone that comes out of the blue and says, listen to my music? Because I know, I think I can sing. My kids will probably say different. No one's going to put me on their album or put me on the stage. Back in the day they would, but not today. But we all believe we are more than what we are. How do you deliver that message when you are trying to deliver the truth and understanding the business? And how do you know when you have that one?
Okay, great question. I'll answer the first part. How do I receive music? Or
yeah, if I were to send you my EP via your social media account,
right,
which is on Instagram, all right,
Mhm.
Are you going to listen to it, or is it going to be one of those things you're just going to ignore?
I am going to listen to it. I'm probably, again, because I know I empathize with the artist because I've been one. I think all good to great executives, right? The ones that I've learned from, the ones that have provided some sort of mentorship for me as well. They know what it's like to be either an artist or producer. And when a young kid comes in and he's passionate about something, he's got his music or something like that. I see myself when I was that kid, when I was, you know, like, hey, can you listen to this CD? I got something that, you know, that's hot. I want you to hear it. And the last thing that I wanted to hear was, you know, either, you know, like, no, I'm not going to listen to it, or I give them something and I hear nothing back. So I am going to listen to it. The one thing I will say is, because of how much music we as executives have to consume, if you have an EP typically has like 5 or 6 songs on it. My advice, here's some advice to all young artists. If that's something that you're doing, if that's a way that you're shopping and presenting your music, your strongest song better be first. If you don't grab, like me, just me personally, if I'm not compelled, or you're not grabbing my attention within the first minute, 2 minutes, you know, I'm kind of like, okay, you know, I'm not going to take too much of an opportunity to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to, you know, to listen to a whole thing, because unfortunately, and I think we all would love to, as you know, people that are in the music business and music executives, we would love to sit there and just listen to music all day, but you just can't. So when I do get something, I will listen to it. I'll listen to whatever you tell me. You tell me like, this is, what's your strongest song? And if you say number 2 is, then I'm gonna go right to number 2. Number 2 is the best representation. Okay, I'll go to number 2. I listen to it. And if it's something that I think is great, if it's something that catches me, I'll continue listening. I like to become a fan of music. Your second question was, how do you know that you have the one?
Right.
Boy, that's a great question. You just, music, it's a lot of feel. It's a lot of, emotionally, something just, like with me, every act that I've ever signed, they had some sort of unique value that I personally had never encountered before. It was something that I'm like, that's different, or they're different, or their story's different, the way they sound, in determining what the one is, that can take a while. I think I know when I come across something that I believe is special, right? And it becomes my responsibility to amplify that and make the public see what what made it so special to me. A great executive is connected that way to the general public, to the masses, and you feel like, hey, if I see this, the world needs to see this. But there's different parameters, but I would say that it's a lot of feeling. It's a lot of feeling when you know you got the one.
Yeah.
So I guess since we're on the topic of discussing like looking for somebody different, the whole idea of like clean rappers nowadays, do you feel like that's something that's like different in a positive manner, or is that like more catering towards like smaller demographics, or trying to like create your own lane when there's already lanes to follow kind of thing,
no.
Hey, Aaron, before you answer that question, I want to make sure that our listeners know that my son is 24 years old. I've got 3 times that on years of him. We've had this conversation, and we kind of feel a certain kind of way about the responsibility of music. It doesn't represent RMK Productions feelings on it. It's our own individuals. So this is based more on entertainment and father and son. So hopefully we'll still remain father and son after this.
Yeah, what he's trying to say, I don't think we agree.
I'm just saying. Go ahead, Aaron. Go ahead and do your thing. And the reason why, when we talk about clean rap, and I'm just going to try to set this up. A couple of weeks ago, we released a podcast interview of a young artist, Malik Hawkins, that in his interview, that part of the contents of the interview, he said he was a clean rapper. And when Aaron and I had a conversation about this, we wanted to know that the perception or interpretation of clean rap versus hip hop, the way it is, was it saying one was good and one was bad? So I'm going to go ahead and let Aaron elaborate on Theo's question, while I just make sure that, when the smoke clears, that it's still all fun and games. But, we're looking to educate ourselves, not only, to our viewers, but I'm trying to be more open and enlightened to what's going on in current state versus the era that I grew up in. So go ahead, Aaron. Go ahead and answer Theo's question if you remember what it says before I interrupt it.
Let's say we repeat it one more time, Theo. I have an idea of what it was, but I want to make sure I address it properly because we went off on a few other things.
So mainly, I'm wondering if what your perspective on this whole the clean rapper and wave of hip hop artists, I guess. Because I don't know, in my opinion, I feel like a lot of hip hop has never came from a very clean place. I guess it's come from a real emotional standpoint, and I've felt a lot of the times people detriment their artistry or their creativity based on trying to get it into I don't know, on radio shows or into the general public's homes instead of putting out their own message. And I was just wondering how you felt about the whole clean rapper movement and what you think where that's going in the industry.
Yeah. First of all, I welcome it, right? I welcome because in a way it's almost like it's almost like these clean rappers are challenging the not so clean rappers to sort of, okay, can you deliver your message without, or can you make a great song without being so, whatever the words you want to, use, without it being so profanity laced or so much, so derogatory towards the opposite sex, or things like that. So much compensating the culture. There's so many different, layers to this. So on one hand, it's like it's interesting. On the other hand, again, as when Kevin and I were having an offline conversation about it, I said, we know there's been hundreds of not clean rappers, if you will, that have been successful, right? So you don't have to be a clean rapper to be successful. You don't have to, you don't have to be someone who just is like totally like no, in order to have a place, and vice versa. I kind of side on where you come from in terms of the artist, him or herself, because a lot of it, when it comes to hip hop, right? We're speaking of hip hop music. You're right. A lot of the artists who have been drivers of the culture, who have been pioneers, they were speaking from, experience, right?
Yeah.
They were documenting what was around them, what was available to them, and they weren't thinking about being, politically correct, or they weren't thinking about using proper English. They weren't thinking about, making sure they didn't offend anyone, because, hip hop has always had that element to it and that's what makes it, in a way, hip hop, is that it's somewhat rebellious. It's somewhat, there's no guidelines. We don't care. We don't care if we offend you, because where we are speaking from is a place of, it's sometimes it's despair, sometimes it's very bleak. It can be. It's not always pretty. So the honest truth comes out with that. The music becomes very authentic. The early days of Def Jam, underneath the original regime of Russell Simmons, Rick Rubin, something fell. Underneath Russell Simmons, Rick Rubin, guys like that, those early executives, they gave us an honest look at what, that was their whole, they laid a blueprint that's still here today, which is, we're going to be loud, we're going to be disruptive, we're going to be boisterous, that's what we're going to be, and we're not going to censor our artists. We want them to be just as honest as what this label represents. It was a label that was, that's what it was, and I think if you take that away, if that never exists, I don't know if this music is as dominant, as important as it is today. I don't know if hip hop is what it is today. The sad thing, right? Because then there's the other side. The sad thing is, I think what started to happen, and this is where Kevin and I might see eye to eye, is going back to the artists. I think some of the artists have gotten away from even attempting to deliver like a real message within the music, without there being this over abundance or overcompensation of you know, again, profanity or you know, derogatory terms when it comes to the opposite sex and things like that. I think it's become a lazy sort of, you know, approach towards the music, because the early stages of hip hop, the golden era, as they sometimes refer to it as, you know, you had songs that and albums that had the parental advisory sticker on it, right? You knew, okay, if I buy this, I remember when I first when I first got hold of an NWA cassette tape at that time. You know, some people don't remember, but it was a cassette tape. Yeah, I'm that old, right? So, but I remember having to listen to that in secrecy because because I knew, like, if my mother ever heard me listening to this, like, it was over. Now, NWA for me was the first hip hop group that I ever felt that way about. Like, there were other albums that came out that had like a parental advisory sticker on it, but it was, you know, it wasn't a ton of bad words in it, I guess. But this was like, and I guess this segues into something different, because this was the first time I was hearing very high usage of the N word. And I didn't know how to take that part. I was like, you know, should I be like, should I like this or should, but I tried to read between the lines and look at, you know, take it for what it was. So that, going back to what I was saying, is that I think in today's music, the thing that we even as record executives that we struggle with is that, you know, some of these kids are extremely talented. I mean, they're great artists.
You're right.
And I think some of them have not, they're not surrounded by people that are encouraging them to really hone in on that craft of writing, you know, be a great writer, not a lazy one. And some of them are just doing what they see the next person doing. Oh, he said the B word here, or he said this, or she said that. I'm going to do that because it's so easy. It's like, oh, they see that works. And sadly enough, that's where this, you know, the dichotomy exists, because it's like, though some of these kids do incredible numbers, you know, they sell out concerts,
and
they sell t-shirts, you know, they do very, so it's for the next 16, 17, or even 20 something year old that's trying to find his or her way in. They're like, well, what works? Oh, me, you know, doing this or being that works. So I'm gonna try that.
You're exactly right. And the funny thing is, you know, I know my son, in the back of his head, he's thinking, you know, dad feels this way. And, you know, Aaron, you and I have had this conversation, especially with music and the N word and the way women are portrayed, is that, you know, and I'm going to speak to our listeners. Okay. I am 100% all in for freedom of expression. I think, and I believe, and I'll say this 100 times over, education is not designed to make you feel comfortable. Education is designed to make you think. When we go back and we listen to the introduction of hip hop, hardcore rap, Snoop Dogg, you talk about Curtis Blow, you talk about the Wu-Tang Clan and others, they were expressing the lifestyle, the inequalities in our communities. And they were part of the revolution and the transition from one era to the other, just saying, this is what we're going through. This is how we're being treated and whatever. I'm 100% all in for that music. And Aaron, you and I have had this conversation. Theo, you and I have had this conversation that every genre in the 70s, 80s, and 90s have positioned themselves in a way that they have taken a position in order to deliver the message. Through our culture as people of color, music has been the way that we have communicated without directly having a sign. Music also allowed our message to cross over. I mean, breakdancing in the streets of New York, in the Bronx, where it was created. transferred all the way over from California to Tennessee to everywhere else. And, you know, you had Cyndi Lauper, and you had groups collaborating with rap groups because of the message was strong, and we had a beat, you know. But to take a work through historic, through our history, and just because you changed a vowel on it, you take an E to make an A, and says a term of endearment. We also have to look at music as being a responsibility to educating and bringing together not only our young people, but people in general. And you know, you and I have said, you know, if you can't have a stranger that looks different from you walk in and say the N-word, why is it okay for everyone else? Music is the common denominator to bringing everyone together. Music is that GPS to the human experience of people of different cultures. And when we talk about, you know, clean rap versus the opposite rap, we have been programmed through a system in order to divide and conquer. And I don't think we should put a name on it. We should allow the music to play. And in my feeling, we should allow the artists to take responsibility for the message they put out there and put humanity before profit. And I think when we talk about the conversation we're having right now and educating people, it's like this genre in music, I always say, do they actually have a place in history, or are they performing music just to get paid? And you'll probably know more about that from this industry than I do.
Well, they, you know, they do have a place in history. And I think, but I think it's a very unique place. And I think the place that a lot of the artists have in history is more tethered to that of how technology played an important factor in today's music industry. And this can get very deep, but you know, there's more music available than ever before, right? And we kind of, as consumers and customers and fans of music, we wanted that, right? We wanted, like, we love music so much, and we hated going to the, well, we didn't hate going to the store, but you know, we had to go to the store, and we didn't enjoy buying our, you know, paying $10 or $13 for a CD. Where now you turn on your phone and you can stream music all day, right? You can just listen to music freely. And there's a very, there's a space of discovery that happens when you come across new music and a new artist, you know, someone you never heard of, and you didn't, you know, it's just there on your phone. But you touched on something, Kevin, I want to go back to briefly, which is, I don't think that there's a place for like clean rappers. There's a place for the not so clean rappers, right? And
why don't we just say there's a place for all music?
There's a place for all music.
I don't like, you know, me personally, I don't like dividing any of us, because right now we're in a time and space when we need to come together. And I think no matter if we agree or disagree on how the message is there, music has a place. And I think each and every artist, no matter what you are trying to get out and what your position is, you have every right in order to have your song played.
That's true, right? But the one thing that we operate on in 2021 and probably moving forward, right? Now, if we get into the industry a little bit more, right? Things are a lot more community based, right? In fact, if I remember reading a book, man, about 5 years ago, maybe longer than that. One of my favorite authors, Seth Godin, has a book called Tribes, right? If you pick it up, and it's sort of a book that was before its time, because what it talks about is how, like, we're all sort of interconnected, but we come from tribes, right? And it talks about, you know, the ability to sort of, at the time, you know, like parachuting into these, you know, particular communities that spoke to you, that that's the way that, you know, the world was sort of designed to be. And what you see in music now, with there's more exclusivity than ever before. There's different platforms that offer up a level of, you know, like for example, you know, if I just want to play or be around gamers, right, I go to Twitch. If I'm just, you know, enamored with you know, with sports or whatever, you know, there's different communities out there that are just designed for that, of, you know, of you know, fans of sports or whatever. Just as within music, you know, like you go to Clubhouse. Clubhouse is a bunch of different tribes, right? You hang out and there's something about IT, cooking, and it's, you know, so what we've done though, we know that there's a place for everything. But what we've had the ability to do now is sort of, things have become more a la carte, where it's like, well, you know, I don't want to catch the not so clean rappers, as you say. I want to operate here. And for the first time in history, there's like, you know, a space where, you know, like if you go to Reddit, you know, I'm sure there's probably some group about, you know, clean music, you know, something like that, where you could just share amongst like-minded individuals who see it the same way as you see it. And for someone who makes that style of music, or for someone that's interested in that, that's your audience. That ultimately is your core audience. Now, if you get people like myself who hey, as long as it's a good song, you got me, I'm good. You could be clean, you could be dirty. Now, there's some things that even that I disagree with, right? And we can, I don't know if you want me to go into them, because it, you know, it can be somewhat uncomfortable. But, you know, seeing things from an industry standpoint, there's some things that I'm like, that's not good. I don't like that.
Well, you and I have talked about it. I know that I have brought up the fact that I watched a video when there were two women, you know, 28, 30 years of age, you know, shaking that tail thing while, you know, you had brothers throwing money at them. And then when they pan to the audience, it looked like a mother and father, which I don't know to be fact. It could have been someone just brought their 8-year-old or 10-year-old son there. And, you know, they're being exposed to that. And I know most 8 or 9, 10-year-olds are influenced by their environment. And if that's the way that the depiction of a woman is to be played, that's the interpretation of how he's going to treat someone else's daughter in the future. I know, you know, with me growing up, I had a lot of rules in my household with Theo, and I'm pretty sure that Theo, you know, did a lot what I did when I was outside of the household, broke all those rules. You know, we just.
No. I thought you were going to say the opposite.
But you know, and that's my thing with you know, the picture that we put out into the world, and then we spend a lot of time defending our position when that exactly wasn't our message and the position we were taking before. I know here at RMK Productions, we are doing a thing with music and bringing back some of the old school. We're bringing back the funk from Ohio. So we're working with groups like Ohio Players, Zap, Lakeside, Ronald Nooks, Peanut, and some of those guys. We're doing something in Boston. I'm hoping that we connect, you know, with you and your crew and bringing on one of your artists and doing it. We're providing on RMK Productions an outlet for people that have films that will never get seen, or being able to be listed, you know, for awards, or can't get into some of the film festivals, to be able to stream through RMK Productions. We also are doing music that way. We have comedians that will never get a chance to have a stand-up, that we create an avenue for them to have their own show. We have people that do fixer-ups and so forth. You know, what is it? When you fix up homes, what is that acronym they have? DIY. DIY. So
that's an acronym in the music industry too.
DIY. All right,
DIY, do it yourself.
So that was my next.
Yourselfers in the music industry.
Yeah, that was my next question, because when COVID hit, not only in the commercial world as far as employment, there are a lot of people that basically did a whole 360 that says, look at where I'm at right now. I'm either docked at someone else's dream, or I'm shackled for the rest of my life to someone else's dream. And when you're docked there, it's like us, we're building a ship waiting to set sail, but we're doing what we have to do every day in our day-to-day jobs in order for us to have an opportunity. A lot of independent filmmakers are coming to RMK Productions. A lot of independent recording artists that can't get to you and listen. It's the reason why I asked the question earlier, are coming to have their music played. I mean, if it had not been for the internet, we would have never known about Justin Bieber.
A lot, yeah, a lot of artists.
How do you feel in the industry? And we're going to wrap this up soon. How do you feel in the industry about people such as myself that have created a platform and open a door to have talent exposed and to be streamed on a global marketplace, instead of knocking at your door hoping that you're going to open it, being in the industry? Are we welcome, or we're someone that you hope that we go away?
No, I love it. I love it. It's not a, because again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is that there's so many, there's so many artists, there's so much music. And I think that companies like yours serve as it's a great platform and a great alternative. Look, I'm very honest with a lot of artists. Like, not everyone needs what I provide, right? They don't, because some artists and some groups or bands or whatever, they're very self-sufficient. They're like a little machine all to themselves. And I say, listen, in this industry, we, you once you partner up with a label or someone like me, you start to, it becomes a business. And within business, it becomes, okay, we have to make money, you have to make money. My company as a label, we take a huge risk with any act that we sign, because we're funding them, we're putting up money, we're helping to, but it's a belief system. It's like we're doing this out of belief. We don't act as a venture capitalist. We're an actual production company, meaning if you come to us with nothing, it's our job to amplify what you're bringing to the table. Platforms that you offer, it's more of a zone of, again, like a space of discovery, right? For someone who, as you mentioned, they either they can't get to someone like myself, or they just don't need it. They just need an audience. And if you can provide them with an audience, they can do the rest. So I think, you can go either way. It depends on where you are as an artist. So I welcome, what you guys are doing.
Appreciate that. Anything, Theo?
Well, I think that's it for me.
All right. Well, Aaron, I am going to tell you again, it's an honor and a privilege. I always, with all of my guests, and you're already very successful, and to ask this question may be a question I'm going to just go and throw out there that's just going to hang in the air. Yeah. But I always ask every guest that's on this show, if you had one big ask, ASK, could not be denied and would have come true if you'd have tossed the ball in the air and it was a home run, what would your ask be? That one dream.
Oh man, these are always tough questions. My ask would, that ball would hang in the air for so long. Oh man, are we speaking music or just?
It's your ask. God says you ask and you should receive. If you want to build your empire to be the place where universal talent lands and you make dreams come true, then ask big. If you have a personal ask in order to, provide literacy for all young people and to make sure that, there's no child in this country, the United States, to go hungry, then ask that, because that's part of our mission at RMK Productions, is to bring everything back to our community. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, let you search a little bit and ask big. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's again, that is a great question. What does come to mind immediately was I would ask if, and I don't even know if it's a reasonable ask, but I guess it is because it's based off your question. But I would ask that all children, all young adults, all children, they're never without a resource. They're never without something that they need. And I don't know how else to ask that, but they're never without proper education. They're never without a family, that they just get a fair opportunity, a real shot, because there's some of us that are blessed that we start way ahead of the line. And then there's some that are remarkable because they weren't blessed with some of the things that others were blessed with, and they somehow make it not only to the finish line, but they exceed that goal. And I mean, that's amazing. And there's some of us that we had a huge head start, and we sometimes we don't even acknowledge that. Sometimes we don't even go back to bring others with us. So as a child, I believe it's very important that children they're never without, they're allowed to dream big. They believe that they can, they have everything that they need in order to get them from point A to point Z.
Theo?
You asking me?
No, I'm not asking you.
Oh,
I thought you were going to say something. Last question. All right, two questions. One, how do people get in touch with you? Your social media? If someone wants to contact Aaron Eubanks, VP of Contra recording, worldwide recording.
Yeah,
Did I get that right?
Yes.
How do they contact you?
So you can contact me via my socials. I'm not a big social media guy right now. Like I use it more so for business. I'm not concerned with posting a lot of things and building my followers, but I'm on Instagram. I am at A Game 2323. So it's the letter A Game and the letters 2323. It's an old basketball sort of thing that we didn't get into, but that's my handle on Instagram. You can also visit our website. We do, we will start accepting some inquiries for music, for film, for management. So that's the website is www.contraworldwide.com. Those are the two main places that I'm active on, and my team is always on the website checking things out. Those would be the easiest ways to get in contact.
Well, Mr. Eubanks, Aaron, friend, first I want to say thank you for allowing us this time and space to pick your mind, to allow you to take your experiences and put them on a universal and a global platform. I also want to thank God for allowing me another day to be with my son. He has been MIA for a while because COVID decided to smack his dad around.
Right, yeah. How you feeling, by the way, Theo?
I'm feeling better. Still a bit congested, but I'm doing all right. Hanging in there.
Great to hear. Great to hear.
Yeah, he brought my son back. I mean, I created this platform of talking with Kevin and son in order to spend more time with my son. And the way the universe is, it has a much greater power. And the format of letting people know that every man of color is not a delinquent. Every man of color is present in his child's life. It's the reason why my son's here. And the reason why we created a platform of people you should know is that we're not about celebrities and promoting their bank accounts. We're about telling people and getting people connected to people they should know. Also, my listeners are people that have called to action. So in the event that someone comes on this show and they're in need, there's someone out in the audience that will connect the dots and make sure their needs have been met. So to my fans, I want to say thank you. To our listeners, I want to say thank you. To our new listeners, from my son and myself, we want to say thank you. And hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Talking with Kevin and
Son.
Son.
Thank you. Thank you.
There
Awesome.
you go.
Awesome.
And the people you should know, Mr. Aaron Eubanks. I want everyone to remember, okay? Dreams are the reason why we exist. Dreams
Yes,
are the
sir.
reason why we have hope. Dreams are the reason why we connect to people that have made dreams come true. Today, we have connected you to a person that is a dream maker, a person that's committed to his cause. My grandfather always said, when you get to a point that you can help someone else, it is your duty. And right now, at RMK Productions, we are in that position in order to help other people. I want you to remember this hashtag, find 1,000 reasons to be kind to someone. Also, reach one, teach one.
That's right.
And we're Fade to Black, and we're out.